the supervisor made a decision, and we were all pretty comfortable with it, that we're gonna get the spots and get out. And if things go bad, we're gonna go in this pond. And it wasn't very deep, so I wouldn't say it was more than 3 feet deep, and maybe 40 by 40, and kind of an odd shape, natural looking pond.
I remember around the pond it was kind of all dirt, like loose silt dirt, minimum soil, not much at all. So that was kind of nice. Grass around it that helped us out a lot, I think.
It wasn't spoke amongst the group necessarily so much about pre-planning for a deployment. It was just people's kind of intuition after we'd heard the message that we might need to find a place to stage. We kind of started looking for areas that might be safe places as far as a good safety zone to actually sit and wait something out.
In my mind, it was like, well, didn't even think about it being a safety zone. It wasn't near big enough for a safety zone. Worst case scenario was like, geez, if you had to ride this out, that'd be a place to ride it out. And the fuels and the topography we were in, that was the best area. And it was one of those things walking by it though that you didn't think you would even have to use it or that was going to be there. It's just one of those things that you've been taught. You just kind of do a little mental picture. Hey, that could be used if you need it.
It's a relatively small deployment site when you look at the timber that's around, but the way the wind was going, all the timber was downwind from us. It's going to be pushed away. That rock wall provided a huge barrier.
The thing that made me stop was the fact that it was getting unbearable, and as I looked up the slope, I could see our time had ran out. We weren't going to make it to that safety zone. And my thought process on that was to, here we have a spot. It's in the saddle, but it's just outside the saddle. We're almost out of it. It was the closest, what would have happened? I mean, we're going uphill. I would have rather been prepared for the flame front to hit me than unprepared.
In the videos, your training video for the shelters, they say, they'll never pass up. Perfectly good deployment site if you don't think you're going to get out to anything better or escape. And that was one thing that stuck with us. We'd pass this lush area of green grass, maybe 40 by 40. It was the only thing green in this area. The grass was semi-cured. It wasn't full on, dormant for the summer.
It was just going from, okay, plan A to plan B to shelter. All of a sudden, just bam. It wasn't, okay, you guys were digging line and now you got to run, and oh, you're not going to make it to your safety zone, so you have to deploy, look for a good spot. It was, okay, we kind of got cut off. We're going to move to plan B, and plan B turned to plan C like that. And then the next thing we know, we're in the black, and then before we know it, we're going to ride it out there, and then next thing we know, boom, we're burning. It's happening now. There's no, like you said, look around, find the ideal spot.
And so it was just reaction. We all moved into the black, we got into the burn, and I felt at that time we were still going to be okay, but rapidly you realized as we went up towards the hill, we had the fire coming up towards us. It crossed our hose line just like that. And I remember one of the guys right off the bat said, let's make a run for it. And myself and a number of other guys said, no way, we're staying right here. There was nowhere to run. We had, again, the fire coming up at us. We went up to the hill. We looked down, and there was a pretty steep drop-off where if we would have gone down there, we would have got seriously injured. And it was a pretty quick decision. I remember Doug saying on the radio, it's getting small up here. And you were all trying to just, within seconds to come up with another plan, and there was no other plan. And the best thing we did was get into our shelters.
You could tell the wind shift. And I mean, we didn't have time enough to do anything then. There's nowhere to run. I mean, you couldn't have outrun that fire. If you'd had a good place to run, you couldn't have outrun it, I don't think. I mean, the fire, it was spotting 200 and 300 foot air. I mean, it was a spot a long way. And I mean, that fire, it was running.
You kind of look at your options and you can't run in here. Your bulldozer's down, so it's no help to you. And that kind of limits your options. You've got nowhere to go. The last resort is your only resort, and that's your shelter. So for us, there really wasn't any other option. That fire was coming, there was no doubt about it, and there was no way we were going to outrun it. We couldn't even walk in here, much it's black dark, can't see where you're going. There's not really much to debate then.
Walking back towards the spot, I think we got about 150 to 200 feet from the engine, no further than that. And that's when everything just came at us.
I know when we were standing here, like the first thought in my head was it wasn't really happening. I remember, like I said, spinning around and just seeing fire and heat, or just things flying through the air, and just seeing limbs, and you could hear them hitting the ground. And we were all standing looking at each other, not knowing what to do, and just trying to get out. When we started backing, it was just the winds were so hard that you couldn't move.
I mean, I came to the conclusion that we weren't going to deploy on the road, because during the day, you know, I seen all the traffic that was coming up and down the road, you know, water tenders, engines, and other fire personnel, and just the stuff that was coming down off them trees, you know. Plus it was, you know, it was smoky, you couldn't see anything, so I didn't feel that it was safe, you know. My deal was to get the fire shelters, put them on, and just start walking out.
It really worked out with the wind at our back, just backing out. It could have been a lot worse if we laid down and an engine had gone through and ran us over. So it was, like I said, the best thing for our situation.